I like to tell people that, growing old is mandatory, but growing up is completely optional. And is for squares that you expect. That said, Simon, please forward it on.
How's the remodel going? Doesn't impact you.
Dude. Oh no, it's all over there right now.
Oh, it is?
They're messing around on a roof.
Oh.
So I had my earbuds in all day because it was,
Walk around.
dude, I swear, it sounded like they were dropping cinder blocks. Which I know, they gotta do a bunch of stuff, I get it, but they're working right on top of it. That's what I sound like? Gross. What up, PC?
How much? How you doing, Elliot?
Hanging in there. You made it to Oak Park yet?
No,
Didn't you say you had a reservation scheduled?
we rescheduled for Florida.
Okay,
Platters.
all right. That's okay.
I'm sorry. We
It's-
were over by
You don't owe me an apology.
we were over by Telluride in San Juan.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, are you heading over there?
I came back from there a few weeks ago. I
Okay.
wasn't that far west. I was just at the Sawwatch range, but
Gotcha.
Leadville area.
We got
Yeah.
bunch of people around, like, they like to go four-wheeling around Denver.
Okay.
So they don't hike up them, they drive them.
That's cheating.
Yeah.
Right, isn't it?
Anybody can do that.
Dude. Over 10,000, man, that's it's pretty thin.
It does, yeah. You start to notice it like around 12.5 is what I've found, like when you're climbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. Like once you get above 12.5, and part of that's just fatigue is set in, right?
Yeah, it's been, you've been going for a while.
Only the mosquito range really has, trailheads that start like at 11.8. And so, you get to 12.5 there, it doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah.
If you're starting at 9,800,
Is that where you're going, like 9,800?
I mean, that's the one I did a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Right, you start that low and then you get up to about 12.5, and you've gone up almost 3,000 feet. I mean, it taxes your legs, and then like the combination of that plus the low oxygen in the air.
How long
You
does it
feel
take to get up there?
What's that?
How long does it take you for the hike? Like if you're going 98 to 14.
So I did it with my girlfriend.
Oh.
It's still together.
There's an excuse.
Yeah.
Going here.
Flex.
It's slow down, wait for.
No, well, I've done it twice.
Just waiting for her.
I've done the hike twice.
Which one did you do?
So Mount Elbert.
Okay.
The first time I did it, and actually I have excuses for both. This last time I did it, it was just under 10 hours up and down. We were with the slower groups going.
Yeah.
She had to a couple times.
Yeah.
do it. No biggie, whatever, that's what you do. The first time I did it, I went from middle of Nebraska to the top of Mount Elbert in about 24 hours. And which is a bad idea. If you don't activate, bad idea. And also I forgot my micro spikes at home. And I was hiking through slush through the upper about 1,500 feet.
Okay.
And so it was 4,500 vertical on that trip, but it was like I did 6,000 because of all the snow. I was like treading twice through that final 1,500. I did that in 8 hours.
You were about to bring like special shoes for me.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was like in the end of October, so it had already started snowing up here.
Yeah.
We did this one, of course, in July, and it was just like a patch or two of snow here and there. Not a big deal.
You get like a game plan to get all 14,000 years?
Well, I mean, we did Mount Elbert because we're doing state high points. We had some state high point in Colorado. I've done 14ers. It's a heck of a trip to get out there. And then, like, I'm not one of the Olympians in the world, so I can't like do a 14er every single day. You got to do like one, take a day off, maybe go bam bam, and then take another day off.
Oh, dude, you stretch them out over a decade or two.
Yeah, I know. So I don't get assassinated before then. So I'm still
We'll be able to
Still worried about that.
go.
Yeah. It's all right.
Crazy world.
Behave myself just enough.
Made out to, is it Oak Pine? The restaurant down the.
That's what I was saying.
So, I'm sorry, yeah, we did
I
make
said
it
Oak
there.
Pine, yeah.
I thought you were talking like, a mountain.
No.
Sorry, yeah, Oak Pine was great.
Good.
Good for, the wife's birthday, so she got
Heck yes.
her caviar thing.
Nice. Good choice.
Yeah. Good choice. She likes it, I like it.
I know. I don't appreciate fine dining at all. So, but it was delicious.
Points, right?
Yep, exactly.
Boyfriend, girlfriend points.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Got the whole group of these. Two of them are remote, but good.
My next.
Have those Carson.
Down here?
Next
All right.
Jay.
No, not this time. I can talk to Hillary about that.
At least you know where to
And
go.
keep it consistent. For now.
Thanks.
That's his bolo tie.
Bow tie, I don't know. I try to wear the bolo tie when I wear this shirt and 104 degrees outside.
Great day for long sleeves.
Exactly. This is actually my favorite shirt. This thing is cool. It feels like a thing. Yeah, serious. This thing's awesome. Columbia, like off shade.
Yeah. Where'd you get the polo tie from?
It's been for years. Yeah, I got it for a Halloween party that got canceled by COVID. So I had nothing to pair it with. That's great.
My wife gives me a hard time when we're a cat like that. Just get the bolo tie together.
Yeah, you're in the city.
I take it, I go to Austin too.
Carson, can you hear us okay?
Sure can. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect.
Ridiculous.
Food come off, Elizabeth, or can we put weight on the foot now for him?
We go next Tuesday.
Okay, next Tuesday.
Yep, no, it'll be 6 weeks. He's ready.
Oh, yeah. When
It's-
did you do it?
It was July 20th. So it was Grandview Wrestling Camp.
A long time to do it, crutches.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the first 2 weeks, he was in that like a plaster split
Yeah.
type thing, and then once he got the boot was last. I guess it'll be 4 weeks, and then hopefully he'll put the weight on. I don't know. It's been a rough,
That sounds just,
it was awful.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Megan's on.
Was it a day
She
change?
is on Zoom.
Go
Yeah.
back and forth? Yeah.
Well, it was just like, it was like a
I see
one day
it on the
thing.
list. I
So
started-
She just
took
popped
a
on.
busload of them up there and,
Big phone call.
well, and they're at stake for like at the further side.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not, leg. The ambulance is here, you might wonder.
Yeah. that's-
Yeah, it was bad.
All right, my clock just turned over to 5:45 and our chair is remote right now, so Megan, I think we're all here and we've got the technology ready. If, you're ready to go, so are we. Still mute. If you need to unmute, that's okay too. Megan, do we have you?
Just came off mute.
No.
No. Carson, can you hear us?
She, got off and is gonna.
Can hear you. Okay.
Elliot, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I was having technology issues, and I'm sorry that I'm joining remotely. Today has been the Mondayest of Mondays for me.
Can relate. I think we're all set. We've got, four of us in-house. We've got Carson remote. So that's all six of us. If you want to get us started, feel free.
Great. Gavel, gavel, gavel. I will now, at 5:47, call the August 26th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Hillary, would you call the roll, please, for us?
Eaton,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Steiger,
Here.
Samuelson,
Here.
Forrest.
Right.
Reginator.
Here. Item number 3 is the approval of tonight's agenda. Any changes or just additions to this evening's agenda? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Thompson seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 4 is the approval of the August 12th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes. Any changes or addition to those minutes? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the August 12th minutes along with a second.
Thompson motions.
Samuelson will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 5, I'd like to welcome the guests that have joined us in person. Again, my apologies for not being there in person, along with all the guests who have joined us on Zoom tonight. Are there any members of the public, either in person or on Zoom, who wanted to make a comment tonight on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Hearing nothing, we'll go ahead and move into our first public hearing and recommendation on the comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use classification of 3089 North Avenue from park to commercial. Just for clarity, we're also going to get the briefing from Elliot on item number 7, which is the zoning amendment change to change that same area from R170 single family residential to C2 community commercial. And I believe, are we talking item 10 as well?
Item 8 as well.
Item 8, I'm sorry, yes. Along with the request for the approval of the final plat for Warrior Run Estates Plat 4. Elliot's going to give us the rundown for all those items, and then we'll kind of work back with the procedure of each of those public hearings. The time is 5:49 p.m., so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And Elliot, if you want to brief us on those items.
Yep, so I'll just go in sequence on these. The property in question is surrounding the former clubhouse of the Warrior Run Golf Course, address being 3089 North Avenue. And I included our future land use map as an attachment to the staff report. As you can see, it's located within the future land use area designated as park. The applicants are wishing to get this property marketed for commercial use, and that's requiring a rezoning, which is also requiring a future land use amendment. So this first item is to change from a future land use designation of park to commercial. That requires a comprehensive plan amendment and a public hearing, just like we're doing right now. That's fairly straightforward. That's really all I have to say about the future land use portion of this. By changing from park to commercial, that allows us to entertain a rezoning request from R170 to C2. I also included the zoning overlay as an attachment to the staff report. As you can see, the clubhouse is currently zoned R170. It's located directly adjacent to land zone C2. So we figured it would be appropriate to also rezone this one as C2. As of now, my understanding is that the folks marketing this do not have a specific buyer in mind. But getting it rezoned will allow it to operate commercially. It's been inactive for a long enough time that it needs to abide by the current zoning class. So if someone were to buy this and want to use it, they'd have to operate it as a residence, but that's not the type of building it is. So we think it makes a lot of sense to recommend approval of the future land use amendment and also the zoning amendment. Before I move on to the final plat portion, are there any questions?
So it's zoned as R1, like around the pond and everything, but future land use has it as park?
Yep.
And so is this, but then this, I don't know my directions, the red thing, that's commercial right now.
Correct. Zone commercial.
And this was because the golf course was there.
So that portion that's C2 right now on the map is always contemplated as a commercial corner someday. That was before my time in the city. That's been zoned C2 for quite a while. But the golf course, did operate that as a driving range for a while.
Elliot, do we have a certain, since it is zone park, and now we're going to remove that zoning, do we need to designate a new area of the city park?
It is zoned residential. The future land use classification is park.
It's not city park, it's privately owned.
It's privately owned. Yeah, it's privately owned green space with residential zone. A golf course is an approved use in a residential zone. So I think Legacy might be zoned residential technically, but that's an allowed use. There's nothing else. The third component of this, item number 8 on the agenda, is a request for a minor subdivision. That'll be a final plat to parcel off some land around the clubhouse as its own lot. Basically, that's the thing that the applicant is wanting to do for, again, marketing purposes. This is currently a piece of a quite large parcel of land containing much of the rest of the golf course. And in order to market that property a little bit more reasonably, we think it makes sense to get that split off into its own parcel. So what they're suggesting is a 2.17 acre split from this property. It's going to maintain the monument sign easement because the one of the Freedom Rocks is out there. So that monument sign easement will remain in place following the split. That'll allow us also to work with the applicant on future concepts for the remainder of that R170 area. We've done some pre-apping with Diligent about what the residential piece of that could look like down the road. Those ideas are still in play. So that's the explanation behind the final plat. There's no utility provision with this. One thing I did note probably multiple times in my staff reports was related to sanitary sewer. This property is not currently connected to sanitary sewer. The city does not have public sewer close enough to require them to connect. We have a provision in one of our ordinances that if you're within a certain number of feet of sanitary sewer, you have to connect to said sewer. This property is not there yet. The property owners are on notice that someday sewer will be within reach and they'll have to. So, just stating that more or less for the record, and that's all I have for my summary. Happy to answer any questions. On
Thanks,
any-
Elliot.
Yes, Megan.
Thank you. Has the applicant or an applicant representative joined us tonight? Any comment on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, Paul Kloss. I'm a civil engineering consultant, 2486th Street, Unit 12, Urbandale, Iowa. Here on behalf of Diligent, and Elliot did a wonderful job, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Any questions from the commissioners before we close the public hearing on both items 6 and 7?
So this, I think 8 was the one that we just went over, and that's the splitting of this like slashed area.
Yep.
And that includes the Freedom Rock access, is that what I just wanna make sure.
Yeah, so, yeah, Paul, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, the Freedom Rock is east of and adjacent to the parking lot. So that easement goes through the parking lot and grants access to the Freedom Rock, and that easement will remain in place.
So on the final plat. It's got. North is to the left, the direction north is to the left, so. Monument side easements there, the rock itself sits a little bit off the parcel line.
It's
Any
currently
other
zoned
questions?
residential, sorry Megan, it's currently zoned
No, it's good.
residential, and then this would turn it commercial because it needs to be.
If they, yes, if they want to market it as commercial, rather, if they want to operate it as commercial, it needs to be zoned as such. That'll help with the marketing. It's, I should mention, while I'm talking, that we only received one public comment about this, and it wasn't so much a comment as simply a phone call asking what was going on here. That individual lives in Brody's Landing, I think on Kestrel Street, and just had a clarifying couple of questions. That was it.
Elliot, is there any plans to take Kingfisher Drive north? To connect that up into the subdivision north of G14?
Not right now. We're not 100% sure how the street network is gonna work out in here. I think we've seen a few concepts where Warrior Run Drive becomes a through street and dips down, connecting into North Avenue somehow. I'd have to refresh myself on some of those concepts, but nothing solidly in place. Kingfisher, I think, is probably doubtful for extension unless that building gets taken.
That was my question, because it looks like if you want to do anything with that here.
Yeah, those accesses are just far enough apart that makes it not work.
Any other questions from the commissioners before we close the public hearing? Hearing nothing, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on items 6 and 7 on the agenda at 5:59 p.m. And now the commissioners, we can deliberate on both of these items. And then I'll just make sure to get a motion on each separately.
Megan, just to cover our Robert's Rules of Order, or whatever the term is, can you ask if there's any public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you for reminding me, Elliot. Any public comment on either item 6, 7, or 8 this evening? Okay, so we'll go, thank you for reminding me, Elliot. I'm off my game here. Again, we'll close public hearings at 5:59. And commissioners, we can now deliberate. I think it makes sense from a marketing perspective, I can see how it would be difficult for the landowner to market that entire section of land without having this specific portion changed to commercial. So I think the final plat along with the procedural pieces to get it to commercial makes a lot of sense for what's going on in that area.
Elliot, I see a lot of residential that I know is connected to our city sewer. Where does our city sewer end? Around,
So,
I know you mentioned that within a certain number of feet.
yeah, so the main thing is that a lot of what's directly south of here goes south.
Yeah.
And there simply isn't the right amount of grade to make sewering this property across the highway work. So in order for this to get sewered, it's gonna have to go to the west. And our applicant, Paul, has provided us with an easement for a future connection at a later date. Yeah, so that would run through the driving range area.
When was the future land use map put together again?
It was during our comprehensive plan update. It was approved in 22.
It makes me sad to lose this potential park, and I know it's been closed since 22, but that's a big chunk of green that I wish could be developed for use as a park in some way.
Well, in doing some of the concepting work with Paul and with Diligent, we've gone a little bit back and forth on the areas of this that can be maintained as they kind of are right now and be integrated into our park system. As I mentioned before, those concepts have yet to be agreed upon and finalized. So there will certainly be integration of some of the natural features in this area into our park system. It's just a box to check when residential development happens.
It was never intended to be a golf course long term, right? I mean, the intention was always that was gonna turn into R1.
It's been zoned R1 for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, so when Diligent came to, this even predates me and I think you, when Diligent came to us with that years ago, 20 years ago, probably, at least. It was always envisioned it would be a fully residential. And they'll have to do their park component when they get to that point, when it's built out, so. I get you, but.
Any other deliberation from the commissioners? Okay, hearing nothing, for the first, item number 6, I would entertain a motion, to approve the comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use classification of 3089 North Avenue from park to commercial.
Is that your motion?
Samuelson will second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Steiger.
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Along the same lines, item number 7, I would entertain a motion to approve the zoning amendment to change 3089 North Avenue from R170 single family residential to C2 community commercial.
Megan,
Force motions.
we technically need to open and close a public hearing for this item before voting.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we opened it at, can we open them at the same time?
I don't know, and I'm not the city attorney. So let's
Okay. So we'll just, we'll go with the, 6:04 as the opening of that public hearing. See reference to our previous discussions. And then we'll close it at 6:04 as well. And Jim can chastise me later if I did it wrong. So I would entertain that motion now that the public hearing is closed.
Force motions.
Thompson second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forrest,
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Steiger.
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Okay, so those are the public hearings. Now, did the commission want to make any further deliberation about the final plat piece? Hearing nothing, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the final plat of Warrior Run Estates Plat 4.
Eden motions.
Steiger second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Forrest,
Aye.
Eaton. Thompson,
Aye.
Steiger.
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Sorry for the cluster of my performance today. Item number 9 is a request from GDM Holdings LLC for approval of the site plan of NutriSport Nutrition. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yep, so you guys have seen a few different plating requests related to this item over the weeks and months, I suppose. And so that they're under construction out there as we speak with some of the public infrastructure, the road leading north, some of the utility changes, et cetera. And this would be for approval of the site plan of the building itself, the landscaping accoutrements, parking facilities, all of the different site plan aspects that go with the commercial site plan. So the request is for the approval of the 7,750 square foot building. This will be a sports nutrition establishment with retail operations and it's going to be located within the area that was recently amended in our PUD for the Hughes Century Crossing to allow for TC uses. Did a lot of work with Jason with Snyder and Associates on getting a good lot configuration here. There's some easement issues towards the south end of the lot that sort of get in the way of doing some building fronting that TC would recommend. With our town center zoning, we want to try and get buildings close up to the road to get a Main Street feel. Some of the easement issues on the site created some challenges, but we were able to work through them. And I think that one of the main plans on here is to have a patio on the south side, on the sun facing side of the building. So that'll help with early spring and late fall programming potentially and use outdoors. And so we've got some 3D renderings from the architect who's with us on Zoom tonight, Mr. Scott Bloom. So gives a pretty good idea of what this establishment's going to look like from the outside. This one looking from the southeast towards the northwest. Yeah, worked with the architect on getting all the architectural stuff to be code compliant. So checked all boxes there. I don't really have anything further to add on it. Happy to answer any questions or reference any illustrations in the packet.
Thanks, Elliot. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to make a comment on item number 9?
Good evening, Jason Ledden with Snyder and Associates. Our business address is 2727 Southwest Center Boulevard in Ankeny. Here on behalf of the applicant. I would mention too, Elliot did a great job. There is a food component to this. They will be selling smoothies out of the east side of that building, and that is a drive-through. Be able to pick those up. So we really feel like they can play on the great park and the great amenities that the city's got there on the south side of the street. So be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission or deliberation on this item?
This is
Hearing
Scott.
that, oh, go ahead, Scott. I'm
So
sorry.
this is Scott Bloom with Accord Architecture. We're hired for this particular project, not for the rest of the overall development, but this particular project doing the architecture work. And Elliot shared some renderings there. I have updated a rendering today that shows the signage for the smoothie, and also the overall building. If you'd like me to share my screen, I sure can. My address, Accord Architecture, is at 2500 Ford Street in Ames.
Scott, do you have a share screen option on your Zoom right now?
When I share, it says someone else is sharing, so you can request the host and to share that.
Well, why don't you go ahead and hit request and see what happens?
Okay, it doesn't give me that. I'm not finding that it's given me that option.
You want to email me the rendering that you got and I can get it pulled up?
Sure, I can do that. You bet.
Maybe.
You bet. I'll do it right now.
Thank you, Scott.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
In the meantime, any questions or deliberation from the commissioners? I think the renderings look really nice and it seems to fit with the, seems like the business would fit in well with everything we have going on in the area.
Okay, Elliot, I sent it across. The reason I want you to see it is because I do think the signage gives it a little more life and helps a little bit more. We have not illustrated all of the plantings that would be part of what Jason and Snyder and Associates have shown you, but this at least gives you the understanding of the architecture from Chatham.
Looks good.
Thank you, Scott.
What were some of the easement challenges that you alluded to that you had to figure out?
Yeah, there's some, Jason might be able to speak on this a little bit more than me, but there's just some, utility easements on the north side of that road that are a little bit wider than usual. So they wanted to create a little bit of space between the edge of those easements and the front of the building in order to have the patio space and make that patio space expandable at some point. And it's this dash line that I'm looking at. There's Jason, it's sanitary.
Correct.
Right?
Yep,
Yep.
there's a public sanitary sewer that runs back through there. It runs to the north, back through the industrial park there. One other thing to mention too is that there is a drive-through stacking length that we were also trying to meet, which is kind of why that building was pushed back a little bit further, was to make sure that we had stacking within that drive-through and nobody was out into the extension of East 18th there. We've all been at Starbucks at 7:30 in the morning and you can't get out of the parking stall because there's so many people backing up. So we kind of wanted to provide the stacking there as well.
Were you able, Elliot, to open that up?
Yeah, did it? Oh, I'm sorry. Zoom, I have Zoom sharing my browser window. So yeah, I've got that. I've got it up right now. If you wanted to.
Okay, so I don't need to see it as long as everybody else is able to see it.
Megan, I think we're set.
Okay, any other deliberation or questions from the commission? If there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to approve the site plan of Nutrisport Nutrition.
Stagger motion.
Thompson second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Eaton,
Aye.
Thompson,
Hi.
Steiger.
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Item number 10 is another public hearing and recommendation on an amendment to the Farms of Holland Plan Unit Development to permit the development of an automobile sales and storage lot. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:14 p.m. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yep, so the request here is for an amendment to the Farms of Holland Plan Unit Development. This particular area is the entirety of parcel 4 in the PUD. PUD parcel 4 contains 3 tracts of land now. One of them is city owned, and that's the area that contains the parking area for the park off Colonial Parkway. Most of the rest of it is one parcel, and then there's an 80-foot wide strip along the north edge in this teal polygon that I have here. So that's the area covered by PUD parcel 4. When the PUD was originally drafted, the underlying zoning here was for C3 uses. C3 ordinarily permits an automobile sales establishment, but it was one of 11 uses that was pulled out of permissivity in this area. So our PUD said C3 zoning, but not 11 things. One of them was automobile sales. So this PUD amendment would do some linguistic edits to that zoning, basically outlined in Exhibit A here. So collapse that. So we would remove the automobile, trailer, motorcycle, boat, and farm implement establishments for specifically sales display as well. We take that out of the omitted uses. So C3 would just permit it in this PUD parcel. The northern 80 feet that I mentioned, that was originally intended to be a trail connection into what is becoming Holland Point. We've determined that the Holland Point plating process up to this point in time adequately addresses that, and that we can just use that 80 feet as part of the development parcel for the remaining ground. I loaded up the Holland Point PUD just as a reference. This is the trail connection. And that 80-foot strip that I'm talking about is right about where my cursor is. Okay, so they were originally going to put trail connection in there. We think that would be redundant now with what they're building up in Holland Point right now. And so that would allow them to develop with setbacks as though this parcel were included in the rest of the parcel area. One of the conditions of receiving the parking lot area for Elizabeth Holland Park is providing an ingress egress easement over the city owned ground. So that's a thing that exists right now. This is just a rezoning consideration. This is not a site plan for an automobile sales establishment. We still need to figure out exactly how circulation is going to work in here and whether or not access through that area at a high frequency is the best plan. One other thing that I've pulled out from the staff report is related to the architectural standards for this area. We thought it was best with this property being immediately adjacent to Elizabeth Holland Park to up the architectural standards a little bit. One of the things we have in our general regulations is a fenestration requirement for street facing or main entrance sides of a building. 30% glass fenestrations is the requirement, so we've included that on the west side. So basically whatever goes here, we want to treat the side facing the park like it's a front of a building, right? I think I've covered all the high points in my notes. So the modifications that we'd be making to the PUD are laid out here. Happy to answer any questions about these, and that's all I've got. We did not receive any public comment on this.
Who all did you have to notify?
Very few properties. I think I sent 6 letters. We just went off the 200 feet requirement, so Lafredo would have gotten one. Capital City Fruit. I'm not sure if Nelson is close enough. Yeah, Senior Living was barely outside the notice boundary. And Hubble would have gotten one. And also Hy-Vee. If anybody wants to see a video of me mailing those letters. First of all, I'm sorry.
That's where we're at these days.
Yeah. And when folks accuse you of not sending them a letter, you get careful.
How do we
Would-
replace the,
Oh, go ahead, Howard.
my question was how do we, what do we repurpose the parking and what do we replace it?
So this would stay put.
When you open phone, where are we?
Oh, sorry.
Public hearing is open.
Okay.
It was opened at 6:04. The parking area would remain the same largely because we own that, the city does. If the applicant came forward with a proposal to modify this in any way, then we think would be beneficial to the city, in addition to them. We could become a party to their site plan approval later on. But we would consider that, yeah, in the future.
Do we need screening requirements because we're between that parking and the potential use? It looks like that ours, at least on the zoning map is,
I hadn't thought of that. That's a question.
sorry, I think we're, that city piece of property, at least it's zoned, it looks like it is, it's red on that map.
It's got a commercial underlying. zone.
It calls it class agriculture. Is that just a taxing class?
Okay. I guess I'm not certain at this very moment. I guess I'd need to figure out provision of buffer between semi-developed ag land in the city and newly developing land in the commercial area. So sorry, I don't have a better answer.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to make any comment on item number 10?
Good evening. Dennis Frischmeyer, DCI Group, representing the applicant 220 Southeast Sixth Street, Des Moines. Greg's unfortunately not able to be here tonight, and strangely enough, we actually were looking at a different site when the city came to us and said, well, maybe you should consider this site. And we looked at it and kind of all agreed, yeah, we think we can get the dealership and everything to lay out there rather nicely. And we got the seller to agree to a purchase agreement on it. And so before we can move forward, this is the resulting request that we came back with. Greg is fully aware of the architectural requirements, what he's got to do to dress the side of the building up to the west that faces Holland Park. Craig King's here tonight. He was very instrumental with the Holland Park development when that went through, but I guess he's looking at a 30 to 40,000 square foot dealership. General Motors right now is going through a little bit of a redesign on all their dealerships, I think, to get more of a uniform look. Otherwise, I'd be able to bring you a better rendering. But I guess we've fully instructed Greg that this is going to take some class, it's going to take some upbuilding or upgrading in what the architectural standards are of a normal dealership. So he is well aware of that. And then as we position it on the lot, he's well aware of how that's going to affect the Holland Park. So conscientious of that and how it represents back to the city and the park.
Would any members of the public like to make a comment on item 10? Any questions from the commissioners before we close the public hearing? Hearing nothing, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:23 p.m. And now, Commission, we can deliberate on this item.
Elliot, the north side of this is residential, right? Correct. I try to always throw my, what if this was in my backyard, shoes on, or hat on. So I know car dealerships like their cars untouched, which usually means lots of light day and night. So how does that impact our residents to the north that could potentially have lots of lights to make sure to protect these cars from being vandalized?
One of the things we require as an element of the site plan submittal is a photometric plan. The way that our code is written, you can emit light up to, but not exceeding 1 foot candle at the property line. Now, I've never had to go out with a photometer and measure that. That's a thing we'll look at the site plan phase to make sure that they're not bleeding light over into areas that they shouldn't be. I think something else that we can be conscientious of as staff is looking into prior proposals, namely, I think the Fairway one, the lighting direction came up. And just examining the different kinds of fixtures that we can use or have them use. Sports complex probably has something to that effect, same as well.
I'm gonna piggyback on that. The sports complex lights are bright. And I know they only go till 10 PM, and I don't know if a car dealership would be 24/7 because of, trying to prevent theft, but if it's anything like the sports complex, I don't want to be where I'm at now because of the sports complex with the lights. I would very much think that the people who would move in there would be unhappy with the lights. In that regard. Go ahead.
The only thing we have going for us is that it's still in development, right?
It's undeveloped.
So like, you're gonna buy that knowing that you're moving to the north of the dealership.
Hubble has been notified. This is a thing that can happen. And they should let people know that that's a possibility.
Yes.
They could get this rezoned and then theoretically sit on it for 10 years. And then those neighborhoods could build. I'm not saying that's what would happen, but they could. And so, yes, adjacency notice is a responsibility now of Hubble. If they want to propose this change based on that concern.
Yeah.
This is a place to do that.
Can you go back to the definition of what we want to add? Because when you first mentioned it, you talked about automotive and automotive storage, I think. I just wanted to make sure that this was.
Yeah. I fear with this wording, and I don't know anything about the applicants, but when we had the master plan for the town center and it was not on there as a sports complex, and then it came in and said, oh yeah, we want to make it a sports complex. We changed everything. And then they pulled out. I am obviously hesitant to change it. And what if they pull out and like a U-Haul place moves in there instead? It happened with sports complex.
The other one that happened was the Luna Circle, right? That was kind of the one where
Yeah.
that was kind of sold as a 55+.
Yes.
We talked back then with Jim of being able to tie a rezoning to a specific development.
Hmm.
Does anybody recall that conversation besides me?
Yeah, I remember that, Elliot, or AJ, sorry.
I wonder if that's something we could do here. I guess the other question would be, is that to the north, is that the townhome for rent development?
No, that would be to the east.
Okay.
Northeast.
Okay.
So northern edge of this area is right here.
Okay.
I have similar reservations to what Elizabeth mentioned. I'm having trouble justifying adding something back in that was specifically excluded from the allowed. I know that's what the purpose of an amendment is, but it just seems like, this isn't consistent with the rest of the development that's going on in the area. So there was a good reason for excluding it initially.
I mean, we talk about now that the sports complex and the indoor facilities are coming and more businesses are coming. Would this maybe potentially have a development, somebody be interested in it now that we've got other things developed around it that would fit into what we currently have it zoned at?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I worry that we're making a huge change for the first versus considering, waiting it out a little bit and seeing what happens with the currently allowed uses for that piece.
I think one of the things we'd look at here is that we're taking an existing entity in town and looking at potentially moving it to another location in town, which frees up that existing space on a main corridor for a different type of development on there. Am I reading that right?
That would be an applicant statement. There are geographical constraints to the applicant's current real estate portfolio that make it challenging to develop on said portfolio. I believe that's the things motivating this.
So is this an expansion or is this, the plan is that their current location would be vacated? It would move completely to a new
The
location?
current location would remain the same. My understanding is that they're wanting to expand brands.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that cements my thought.
Okay. I like AJ's idea. I would, if we can, propose we approve this change for this specific applicant. And if that were, for whatever reason, to fall through, this change, this amendment change would be null and void, if that's possible.
If you want to recommend some sort of tie like that, then I would just personally, I'd go consult legal to figure out exactly what that would look like. But you certainly can.
I think kind of like you said, I think we've had a couple of things. I don't want to use the word burned. We've had a couple of developments that changed that once we've rezoned something, it's been kind of a switch in ownership that has developed something that's different than what we were anticipating and hoping for that, right? I guess I'd be okay proposing that we tie it to a specific development. I think like I said, we probably need to talk to Jim to make sure we get that language figured out.
So can we even do that here, or do we need to talk to Jim first and then come back with the language?
No, I think you're safe making that recommendation.
And then just
It's the wording that.
the language gets cleaned up and
Yeah.
Jim takes care of it before it gets to council.
Right.
So let me ask this, if we move forward and do this with our special language, what would council have to do to overrule us? Did they need a supermajority?
Majority vote, yeah.
But I think council, I would guess that council would honestly agree with. Because for whatever we heard about the circle, they heard it 10 times more than what we did.
It reminds me of when we just earlier in the year, the Winslows came and they wanted to put in that storage area over by Brody's Landing. And it's like, when we turned it down, we, shut it down.
Even if we turned it down, council can still.
Right, but it's like, that seems like the same thing.
Right.
Like Brody's Landing is new and they came with something right away. We're like, hey, let's pump the brakes and see what else develops over there. This seems like the situation again.
I guess all the existing uses out there in my mind are all industrial uses. I mean, I drove out there the other night and there's no reason to drive down that road past the bank right now. There's just not, unless you're going to work at City State. None of those places down there have, I mean, they're not retail locations, right? You're not driving down there to really buy anything unless you're getting a thing of fruit at Capital City.
Can you show where the library is going
That's,
in relation to this?
It's the next road south.
So that's
that's not other developments.
like down here.
Yeah, I mean, literally there's,
But it could, because we're having the library go into the town center, maybe some other places like that might be joining.
I guess I don't see any connection between this road, Colonial, and the town center.
There's big grading problems.
Yeah, and there's not really,
Colonial and where Chatham is budgeted.
yeah, you're really not connecting those. The only thing it connects eventually is if Hy-Vee gets through there. As we all laugh.
Like on what they don't do it or?
Just not forcing the situation.
It's an ongoing joke.
Do something.
Yeah, I guess,
So
in my mind, it seems like an odd spot to me for a car dealership type of place, given that it's off the highway and there's not a ton of visibility. But I guess if somebody wants to develop it as that, I don't know that I necessarily have an issue with that myself. If they think they can get the traffic, like I said, there's not a whole lot of reason that you're gonna drive back there unless you're working at one of those places that have to back there. I guess if the car dealerships thinks they can make it work back there, but not having a highway frontage, I guess I'm okay with that, because the only thing, the only other thing that's gonna go back there is the industrial ground, which we now have more of that south of town, and we have a lot more of that potentially coming on board to the southwest of town.
A traffic standpoint, is that single lane road once you pass the bank, or is it double?
There becomes a turn lane at some point. I think we even have a socked, like a covered signal for a second turn lane going south.
Two's going south eventually.
Yeah.
But once you get past the bank to the east, it's just head-on-head traffic, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, besides the work times when workers are going to and from work at those places that are out there, there's never anybody out there.
Yeah, we got the right of way width to accommodate the expansion of that road, as necessary.
City limits currently end at the end of that.
So,
And there's no plans to punch anything through to the east in any time.
no, so city limits at
Totally go out to there.
this thing, yeah, eventually this turns into, we prelim platted. Roundabout would go between Colonial and Sayre Drive that comes down here, mostly so the truck traffic stays out of the state.
Any other deliberation from the commission?
I get where you're coming from, Elizabeth. I guess I have a hard time failing something just so the council has to override us.
No, I just, in
Yeah, I
principle,
get
I
you.
mean, I just.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bait and switch, I guess I just don't, or I don't know if that's the right term.
But I think I would be okay, like I said, putting forth this to council with the language that we tie it to this specific development and this end user for calling that.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think what we'd like to do is propose to approve this amendment change for this end use and this applicant is what we'd like to check with Jim on to get language on that.
As a recommending body,
Yeah.
that's an adequate motion in my opinion.
So
No.
just for transparency, my vote is still no. Regardless of if it's tied to this end user or not. Not that that makes it so that I can't entertain a motion. I just want to be transparent because I'm not sitting in the room.
I have one more question, because AJ brought up a good point. Do we have any limitations on how high of a sign you can have? Because that's far enough back. I mean, I think about driving past City State and, yeah, you can see that parking lot to the park, but you're not unless you're cranking your neck looking for it. So if you're gonna have a sign letting people know on the highway that you have a business back there, it's gotta be a pretty high sign. Do we have a limit on how high of a sign you can have?
So monument signs can only be on the property that they're serving.
Okay.
Unless you get permission from the property owner that you're building it on to install said sign. The tallest a sign can be is 18 feet.
So we're not talking about like a giant come and go sign that's 100 feet in the air that you see.
The only exception we have to that in our code that I've never had to work with is if you have like a power center sign out near Highway 5. Say Target, Home Depot, Panda Express, Red Lobster here, like those kind of things. Those are allowed to be like 25 feet high, I think. Again, that's a dusty part of my sign code. But 18 feet, you need certain setbacks.
And we're technically not changing the use, we're just changing this one specifically not allowed use, right?
You're negating the elimination of this use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But otherwise, all of the current zoning, property and building restrictions would currently apply, except we're putting in some further restrictions on the western facade as a bunch of things. Okay.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the Farms of Holland Plan Unit Development to permit the development of an automobile sales and storage lot subject to language approved by the city attorney that attaches that approval to the specific end user applicant.
Samuelson will make that motion.
Steiger second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Thompson,
No.
Steiger.
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forrest. What was
Did
that?
you say that again, Carson?
Aye. Yes.
Eaton,
No.
Reginator.
No.
It's a tie.
I believe a tie is tantamount to recommendation of denial, so it'll move forward. I think a supermajority vote from council for.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Item number 11 is a study session and discussion regarding accommodating technology and data uses in the Norwalk zoning ordinance. Elliot, would you brief us, let us know what you're looking for from us on this item?
Yep, so this is a thing that Luke and I were examining about just the zoning ordinance not adequately addressing data centers and what we should do to do that. Some of the main things that we wanted to figure out is, well, we don't allow them technically according to the zoning ordinance, which would mean if you wanted to have a data center, you'd need to go get a special use permit from Board of Adjustment, and then you could build them anywhere. Because that's how it works in our zoning code if we don't expressly permit something. So there's a three-pronged approach that we could take. One of them would be just to allow data centers in an existing district, for instance, just add it as an approved use in M1 or IC. The second option would be to create a new district specifically focused on data centers. I think that's the one that Luke and I kind of are leaning towards. But then the third option would be to have an overlay zone. So in the same way that a PUD is an overlay zoning on top of residential or commercial, we could potentially have an overlay zone related to data centers. So we don't really like the idea of doing overlays because we'd rather just have it be a district or be allowed in a district, period. It's kind of a redundant strategy. So that's one of the things that we're wondering about. And just to be clear, this agenda item is seeking comment. There's no recommendation here. We're just wanting to gather thoughts from you guys before talking to council about the same things. I suppose for moving on, are there any thoughts on that? Including a data center is allowed in existing, create a brand new district, or do an overlay?
I think existing is not the right answer in my mind. I think there's such unique animals as far as architectural requirements, everything else that goes along with it. I think this new district seems like it make the most sense. You can write a very clear zoning for that, right? Without having to cobble things together from an existing district.
I'm curious where you're thinking. I think just south of town, like in the Dunn area, or like.
In
like
general, that pitching is kind of the only land suitable for this type of use. Yeah.
I wouldn't want that near me.
There's a lot of annex areas.
I'll get to aesthetics in a bit.
Okay,
But we're talking about the boring stuff first.
I know. It's just like I'm just picturing it popping down somewhere.
For you guys, I mean, it's. The new district created kind of a clear delineation. Or a clear kind of line for you guys, delineation, there we go. Of what it is, right? Is that the easiest way for you to administratively do it?
Yeah, and I don't think we would create a district and call it data center. We'd probably call it like MD, M-D, and then if it's, if we decide, data center fits here, but then maybe like chip manufacturing fits there. I'm not saying we're gonna get an Intel plan that would change our lives forever if it did occur, but sure, yeah, we could create a new district and then that gives us the flexibility to respond to any number of industrial requests that we get that maybe don't fit into the zone right now.
Do we have any idea what the footprints of those look like?
Glad you asked, Howard. So one of the things I was gonna talk about. Okay, this one's West Des Moines, right? This one's just north of Highway 5.
Yep.
spit from Echo Valley and hit it. Willow. And then refresh my page. Hang on a second. So the other one I wanted to compare that to is Facebook. And the reason that I wanted to compare and contrast these, granted, this entire Facebook site is triple the size of the Microsoft site, but I guarantee you that one of the things that went into the Facebook site plan, something related to open space. And look at how much open space there is on this gigantic lot as compared to this. Do we really need a ton of open space between industrial buildings with a handful of employees in each?
So that was done on purpose?
I don't think so. I don't think it was deliberately done. I'm just guessing that the city of Altoona said, well, here's your proposed thing. You gotta meet our open space requirements or a building separation requirement of some sort. That's one of the things that we need to think about if we establish a new zoning district.
Well, it may have been because of fire emergency services.
That could be
just
too.
In case that.
Yeah.
Data centers are really standardized. I mean, I guess you see a lot of Facebook data centers that took that over.
That could be as well, yeah. Those roads are plenty wide enough for a fire truck.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they're coming. There's huge demand for an AI. They're building like crazy.
Yeah.
Because they demand you more than these kinds.
Way more.
So we want to be in that game.
Yeah. It seems like you'd wanna maximize the taxable value on the smallest parcel as you possibly can, right?
Yeah.
Cause I don't know what the dollar amount for the Microsoft one versus the dollar amount for the Facebook one are, but man, if you could take.
Per acre, I promise you, this is worth more.
Right,
Way
and because all of Microsoft data centers pretty much look like this, the one they've got over West Des Moines, the one they're building just to the west of Cumming on the interstate, I mean, they all look very, very similar. Square. Yes, they're very, like I said, they're very, very boring, they build boxes, they don't care what's valuable, what's inside. I guess that'd be the advantage of its own district, right, get rid of those kind of open space requirements and. Like I said,
And another thing to go along with that, we don't require parkland dedication for commercial or industrial property. If we create a new district, maybe we can take this open space and do a transfer of development right type of thing where we say, all right, you want to, develop like this, great, give us parkland somewhere. Go buy property offsite. I'm speculating a little bit, but this might give us an opportunity to help bolster our parkland portfolio if we allow this type of building situation.
Do we have the electrical infrastructure for data centers?
I'm told we either do or are a few upgrades away, not on our dime.
Mid-American
Having
loves
that
servicing
capacity.
these things because they're huge users. Mid-American ones that built it with enough money to service these things.
Yeah, my question was, I didn't want this to come back on the city and be like, oh, yeah, we want to come, but you're gonna have to spend a whole bunch of money, city of Norwalk. to
The
provide-
same way that private developers build a street.
Yeah.
Anybody wanting to put in a data center would have to pay for the upgrade capacity.
Most of these areas that are currently be considered are in the annexation area where we're trying to get sewers to go anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the only other need. The only thing that I don't like about data centers is the water usage. And I know if you talk to Wind Water Works, you get the same answer. But I guess it's not really a zoning thing. It's just a personal preference thing.
Water and heat. We talked about that.
But like I think you pointed out, like that parking that you're seeing right there, that is only for construction. If you go back to the other
Okay,
one we had in West Des Moines.
That was, okay, yeah, that was something else I was gonna talk about. So I think I've got a good take on. It sounds like you guys would be supportive of us just creating a new district.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that we wanted to do is we went out and looked at some of these. And I took kind of crappy photos because I was a passenger in Luke's car, and so I was in motion here.
Up and take pictures with telephone land.
It was Friday afternoon last week, man.
Security, isn't it?
One of the things that we looked at was fencing. So the fencing that they have around so first thing, we couldn't find any rhyme or reason to why the fencing changed. in certain spots. Like, we think that this fencing, which is about a 7 to 8 foot high ornamental stainless fence, looks pretty good. Like, that's about as good of an industrial fence as you're going to get. The purpose of it obviously is not to hide the building.
Right.
But you can do berming and landscaping on the other side of it to help mitigate, again, like AJ said, the boring appearance of these structures. Now, this side of it on Willow Creek Drive, for some reason, there's no change in the buildings behind this, but it goes to chain link with barbed wire on top. I don't think this looks terrible because a prison doesn't look like this. It's spiraled barbed wire, right? But I definitely prefer the ornamental fence. And so that's my staff opinion. I don't know if the commission has any opinion on that. It seems like all the substations are surrounded by masonry walls. That's kind of settled. That's definitely gonna have to be opaque because those are ugly. Data centers are just boring for the most part, right?
It's to keep that dead raccoon from climbing over it.
Keep it, yeah.
Did you
yeah.
in the street there?
It's usually a security thing with people.
That's-
People have a
I think
tendency
so.
to shoot up.
That's
substations for
on
some
the
reason.
street.
Promise
George
that
saw it
wasn't-
first.
You were focused on the fence.
Is this why I got bit by a bat last night? Was one of his buddies trying to get revenge?
Maybe.
That's a story for after P. Anyway, so fencing is one of the things we were talking about in the car when we were driving around, and then also that berming. It seems like a lot of the landscaping these places do are inside the fence, which is a little bit backwards from what we tend to do in residential communities. You tend to have the landscaping in the common areas next to residential lots.
Again, these things are gonna be in a zone where we should not be anywhere near anybody's residential property, right?
No, no.
Yeah, that's one of my concerns is it's gonna be, yes, there's a lot of that open farmland, but there's still houses out there and then you're gonna have a whole PR fiasco if you're dumping one of these in somebody's backyard.
That is something to think about. These things also generate wild amounts of tax dollars. And there are,
I know
you're
sometimes
not wrong,
I know sometimes people don't care about that.
You're not
They're all
wrong.
livelihood.
but that's, and again, that's a thing for council to
Yeah.
decide upon, right?
Just, yeah.
Managing a city is about balancing competing interests. You can't maximize everything. You can't both.
I get it, but you don't wanna
So-
crap on the people who've been there.
Of course not, but I
No.
think that, and I haven't been in the annexation meetings. But I'm pretty confident that our staff have been transparent to the folks that we're talking to about this kind of thing, and a lot of them are gonna see dollar signs and react to them. Not all of them, because you have to have a suitable site, but developing property next to you almost always raises the monetary value.
Looks like they put Jersey barrier in front of all the, or not Jersey barrier, the steel guardrail barrier in front of all the chain link that they've got out there.
Yes, they did. That was the other thing that I thought was a little bit,
AJ, what does that mean?
Like the galvanized steel, yeah, like the full picture, like you go there. It's all security based, right? Cause you can drive through a chain link fence.
Right.
But you can't drive through that steel barrier. Well, you can, but you're gonna slow down.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
But that steel fence they got, that's basically designed for a car hitting it, not getting through.
They've had issues somewhere before.
Yes.
I think, yeah, really, really long discussion to your answer is we should have our own separate district.
Separate district to address all these things.
kind of the other main things that that Luke wrote this one. Pointing out in the staff report, AJ, to your point, parking. These places require hundreds of people to build, dozens to operate.
Yep.
I think it would be prudent to have a provision in our code for this use to say, maybe you can have a gravel lot for a while, and which we don't ordinarily permit anywhere.
Right.
You can have it temporarily while during whatever time period it takes, but it'll be put back to landscaping or paved. Maybe you put back some of it to landscaping, pave the rest for your staff.
Yeah.
That's a thing that we should think through, because
Yeah,
that
even,
parking lot out here
It's just small and.
is, I mean, this is
That's
at the,
paved.
this is at the corner, and I know there's no interchange here. But like, this is a paved lot
that'll get
next
torn out.
to Veterans Parkway. And I don't know what their plan is with it, but it cost a lot of money to build that thing.
Well, even the one to the south of the bypass, just across the street from the one you started with,
Yeah,
that lot is paid.
this one.
If you go to the, you can't see it because it's on the
Go,
west, it's on
go,
the west
no,
end.
go west. You can see it. It's right there.
That's all paid.
Yeah.
This thing is?
Yeah.
Yeah, they will, it is worth them, because these are for your construction projects. It's worth the contractor's money to pave that, tear it out at a later time to not have to deal with the gravel on a parking lot.
So back to the parkland piece, if we can save them some money by not making them pave their lot.
They don't have to. That's a choice that they make, because
I know.
like I said,
But if we can, if there's again, this is gonna take a lot of creativity. I don't have the answer right now. If there's a way for them to take that money and go buy parkland somewhere else, why not do that? If it's a pittance to them, well, heck with it. Let's take advantage of that pittance and make it benefit the rest of the community.
these are billion-dollar projects.
Heck yeah.
Those parking lots are around here for them.
Yep.
Honestly, they're around here. They don't care. So it's not a big deal at all for them to, so if you put a parkland dedication in there or something like that that's elsewhere, in all reality, like you said, for them, it's around. As long as it doesn't prevent something in it or that, I guess I have no problem with something like that. Even if it's in lieu of parkland dedication, because we've done that before, right? In lieu of parkland dedication, you can write a check, right?
Yep.
It's a check from one of these. I don't know what the parkland dedication valuation would be for some of these sites, but we've got park ground in town that could use some playground equipment and some upgrades, right?
Yeah.
And that would go a long ways to help out our business.
One across the highway from here is 7.3 billion square feet, so that's shy of 20 acres.
It is.
Yeah.
It's more than $1 billion project then.
Mhm.
So, like I said.
I guess I would just, the only caution I would have is make sure that we're not adding too much, that West Des Moines is always gonna beat us. Like, we wanna be competitive, so whatever, in fact, if this is something we wanna go into, and to chime in with what Elizabeth said, if this is gonna be south or southwest of town, where we think is a prime spot for that, that has the least impact on residents that are currently there, and if it's something we wanna do for the city, we think it's good, then we need to make it better than competitive to West Des Moines.
And part of that is knowing what these companies are used to.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, Luke's been involved with that a little bit. Holly's been involved with it a lot.
The nice thing
That's
is-
coordination on the back end for us.
It's from a city standpoint, and even a school district standpoint, it's a ton of taxable value that doesn't come with kids, right? It doesn't add kids to a classroom.
Do they typically have like the tax breaks where you don't get any of that money for X many years?
I don't know what West Des Moines gave them.
Probably to some degree.
Again, but when that tax expires, you're looking at legitimately $2 billion. I don't know what the current property value of everything in Norwalk is. But when you add $2 billion,
I'll say like 7 billion.
right, when you add $2 billion, blink of an eye, essentially, that's a huge commercial tax base.
We're just running on the same tax abatement that everybody else gets.
That doesn't exist anymore. Our residential property tax abatement went away.
Resident, oh,
Our 5-year residential.
good man.
Ask Hillary.
I think it goes.
Goes away soon.
Into December,
Okay.
or, yeah, year end,
It's going to go away.
yeah, going to go away.
I've heard a rumor of that.
But I think these, if you don't mind me just jumping in here, those data centers, I think they I don't think they ask for a whole lot from the city, do they? They're usually just big, it's like having oil well in your backyard.
I'm sure West Des Moines built a lot of roads for Microsoft data centers.
Oh, Veterans was built just for Microsoft.
But they took it all the
They did.
yeah, with the tip money.
There's development that's spurring along veterans out there. And there's
Yeah, otherwise that would have stopped right there.
Is the reason why is because we have so many windmills in Iowa that then they can claim it's green energy that's powering these data centers? Is that why they're so willing to come with a lesser amount of incentives?
Part of it's that, part of it's also that Iowa is a very low risk natural disaster state compared to other places. It sounds counterintuitive because of the cultural reputation we have for extreme weather, but as far as these things are concerned, these things are built to withstand anything.
Right.
And as long as they don't get flooded.
It's kind of crazy that basically a standardized data center, and they design them as if they're in California or high cycling. So the ones that are in Altoona are designed at the same earthquake standards as the one they do in California.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just, because they have a standard, and they're like, we know what this costs, we know what this is, we just want to build this.
I want to build that.
Yep.
Sign fees are expensive.
Sure, like I said, I'm around here.
Thanks for talking this through.
Okay. Yeah, no, you guys had good thoughts. I think we've got good direction for now. I think Luke is gonna want to bring this to council to get their thoughts also. But expect to see something about this in the next 6 months or so, creating a district, I mean.
I'm for it just because we have so many in our backyard that we don't get any any revenue from. So if we can start bringing them into our yard in the proper place and actually get incentive for the city, it'd be awesome. Because AJ's right. I mean, there's a few kids that are gonna show up from those 10 cars that are operating that thing, but it's not like any other development that are coming.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing for our school system. It's a great thing for our city.
Megan, do you have any thoughts on any of this?
Telecontractors, right?
So I would just second everything that everyone has discussed so far. I'm completely for the separate
District.
category for this type of use. I guess my opinion on the fencing and all that other stuff, I mean, they're an eyesore no matter what they're going to do to them. So I would leave that all up to you all in terms of security or what, whatever you think is best for those pieces, because it doesn't look any better with or without that fence or that landscaping to me.
All right.
But if that's all you need from us on 11, we'll move on to 12. George, any city council update for us?
Sure, I got sidetracked there, but a little bit. No, not a whole lot. We'll be meeting this Thursday. I think, I assume most of us will be on this schedule then, but everything seems to be going well. Let's let it go at that, maybe. Like the one you talked about tonight, the car dealership one. We're still getting used to our role in that first, when initials starts out of the council, then comes to you guys. We started talking about it briefly, then like, no, it goes here first. So we stopped. Let's let it go. So just let you know, we're trying to figure out, at least I'm still trying to figure out what our role is on the first initial one. And then it comes here, and it comes back to council eventually.
Are we working to change that? I know we were discussing that at one point.
Well, I think that was, it used to come like directly here. Am I wrong about that? And I've been wrong a lot. And so we initiate the call, council initiate, even though we're not out trying to solicit it. It comes and we just kick it on you guys. Is that what we're supposed to do? But we started debating about that one. Just for about 30 seconds. Like, no, stop.
It's easy to start doing that.
Yeah, let's move on. And just
Wasn't
keep
Jim
it.
supposed to come and talk to us about
Yeah.
the thought process, but between that, because I don't know.
I probably need a little bit of that myself, quite frankly, but I think it's pretty much we accept it and then we just accept it. I don't know what the legal ramifications of that is. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's
That might
that
be
or
better.
the alternative of making them get petition signed by 50% of property owners nearby. And then, because that happened once this year. I can't recall which property it was for, but those are the two paths that our code says we're supposed to take. Either council says, yep, applicant, go for it, go to P and Z.
Yeah.
Or the applicant, we're not so sure about this, go,
Does that have to do with the circle?
no, it was a different project.
Different project? Okay. There's a reason, legal reason for it.
Yeah, Jim's, was to go through city code and thought that was what we needed to be doing, because that's the way he read city code.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Great. I don't think Holly is here, but I can't see. So if she is, I apologize.
Nope.
And so Luke, any update for us from a community development standpoint?
Luke is not here either, so I'll take that over.
Great.
He was presenting at the City of Cumming tonight talking about the annexation stuff.
Gotcha. That is important too.
Just got out of that a little bit ago and we told him that the meeting was winding down, so he's off the hook to not have to come back. Right now I've got no agenda items for September 9th. Which I'll be spending all day driving home from Atlanta, so maybe that's a good thing. Yeah, I don't really have an update right now. The data center thing is really one of our main focuses from a policy standpoint. And that Holland Point, the main project we got probably on the agenda soon is the Holland Point Townhome and Apartment site plan. So expect to see that somewhat soon. That's all I got though.
Great. Thank you, Elliot. We'll have our next meeting on September 9th if it's necessary. And at this point, I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
Is that your motion?
Thompson second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:06. Thanks everyone for putting up with me being remote. I appreciate everybody's patience and I'll be back in person hopefully next time.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Say, Elliot, I see you.
Hang on,
Where-
let me
Oh.
stop the. Oh, I gotta stop over here.
Is that the recorder?